What's up, everybody? Peter Exodus O'Coffer here for another episode of Classic Songs. And man, little journey to get here to this point on this song, Do It Again by Steely Dan. Loved this song since I was a kid in the 70s. I don't know if I remember when it first came out in 1972, I would have been six. Always loved the sound. And, when I started doing my own music and writing music, usually I could listen to a song and figure out why it works. For the longest time, I never could with this song. It was just, and it was a mystery to me. And it's always had a real mystical, mysterious vibe and sound to me. And I was like, well, how'd they do that? Where did that come from? And so over the years of listening to it, I'm like, still can't figure it out. And then, when YouTube came out, I would go listen to it on YouTube, the live versions, and I was like, well, hell, why am I beating myself up? Because, that magical sound uh, in the studio that they got, Steely Dan couldn't even reproduce that, live. So I finally just said, something, that little voice inside said, just go ahead, start it, and you'll figure it out. And I'm glad I finally, started doing the research because it all came together and it made sense as to why this song is so damn good. So the background, 1972, this came off of Steely Dan's first album, Can't Buy a Thrill. Also, this album has "Reeling in the Years," which is another classic, badass, Steely Dan song as well. So you had two classic songs. Here we are, 51 years since these were released, and they're still going strong, and people are still falling in love with those two songs. Had other good songs too as well. Um, so yeah, Steely Dan, kind of a rock jazz band, and all of the great things I love about Steely Dan are you know percolating in this song on steroids. So yeah. So the song clocks in at 5 minutes and 57 seconds. It's in G minor and it's 125 beats per minute. So what is it about this song that just, that cooks, at least for me and for many others, because, it's still, it's still getting, this song isn't, going away. It's still, in the forefront and people are still falling in love with it. Well, here we go. And let me just tell you how how the process worked for me. So I just started with Wikipedia and just reading stuff from people that did write ups of this song. So you got a Yamaha YC30 organ patch going on. Actually is I think the YC30, the nickname is the plastic organ. So you got, very early organ from the 70s. I thought maybe would be a Hammond B3 or a Rhodes. But no, it's a Yamaha. I mean, those are the famous, from this era, the late 60s and the 70s, the Hammond B3s. You hear about them all the time. And, some of the Rhodes. Well, it's a Yamaha. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Here's where, the magic comes in. So that distinctive shaker sound, that is called a Guiro, spelled Guiro. So that's the first element. And then you have the Congas, so that's the second element, you know. And this the Giro is very common in Cuba and Puerto Rico, and obviously the Congas are, the Caribbean and into South America. So you have that flavor going in there, along with regular kind of jazzier rock sort of drums, because I mean they do have the jazz background. And then you have that Yamaha organ going on. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is where so it's not a classic guitar that they're using. They are playing a, let me get the term right here, uh, an electric sitar. Now, if you remember the sitar, um, the Beatles used what? The, the 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 sitar is used heavily with the Rolling Stones in Paint It Black. Brian Jones had this knack for picking up instruments and learning, how to play basic, how to play them basically quickly. So it is, if you listen to, the uh, Paint It Black, it's there, and also Norwegian Wood. It's a really twangy, and this is an instrument that comes out of India. And so, but, you know, um, I think the Beatles and the Stones, when they used the sitar, they used the regular, acoustic version out of India. An electric sitar, according to Rick Beato, um, and I read up on this, um, but Beato says this. This next part comes a little bit from research in Rick Beato. So, the electric sitar is 5 strings, like a regular guitar, and it looks for the most part like a regular guitar, but they have special strings where it makes it buzzy, and that I got that from Beato. And then there's a third pickup on this as well. So you know, look, don't know guitars well. The Gibsons, the Les Pauls, the Rockstar Gibsons, they have 2 pickups. Um, Fender Stratocasters have 2 pickups. You know, single coil, and the humbuckers, the fat pickups, are for Gibson. And then the Fender Telecaster has 1 pickup. So 3 pickups here. And you have that real twangy sound that, when used properly, just adds a whole supernatural element to music that the a sitar can give. Now, interestingly enough, the sitar in here, it kind of sits in between the guitar sound and the sitar sound. But there is, during the guitar solo, the first maybe uh, 20% into that solo, it gets very sitarish there. Very, very much like maybe 70% sitar for, 10 or 15 seconds, and it goes back out and goes kind of 50-50 again. So here, I mean, you got this soup, and I talk about the importance of Rick Beato is he's the music theory guy, and he's the all that stuff. So if he has a whole episode on you know how Steely Dan's music's changed. I think it's 30-40 minutes. So if you love Steely Dan, go check out Rick Beato. But I'm focusing here more on the tone, and when I really got the song is when I went and listened to each of these instruments on YouTube separately. So I listened to I know Congas, but I listened to the Guiro, Guiro. They play it, and it's kind of a cylinder, and you play it like that, and you kind of scrape it, and they have that going through that percussion going through the whole song. And then I heard the electric sitar for the first time, and that's where it clicks. So and when you talk about tones rather than notes or whatever, and when I get into some of the more classic rock stuff, and how classic rock guitars really made a lot of times, the hooks in these classic rock songs come from rhythm guitar, the rhythm guitarist, not from the lead guitars. I mean, the lead guitars wow you, but the hook oftentimes what sucks you in is that rhythm guitar. And a lot of times they're not really playing really complicated stuff, but it's the tone that get that draws you in, the tone of their guitar. So I mean, think of tone and the sound of it, and just playing one note, and you're like, wow, that's an interesting sound. And so you have three very interesting tones you have going on here. You have the congas, you have the Guiro, and then you have this the electric sitar. So you have you know the Caribbean mixing with India, and then you have the American jazz drum and a regular kind of rock bass, and you have these three kind of cultures converging, and that's what really gives the song its umph and really like wow. That's where the wow factor comes because it's almost it's like you have these three very different flavors and a tweak, and the Steely Dan tweaks it perfectly so that everything fits and flows and melds together. And so it's now that I've cracked the do it again code, it's beautiful how they did it. Yeah. So if you're a huge Steely Dan fan and you love this song like I do, I would really recommend looking these instruments up and just listening to them separately, and then you'll understand why this song is so powerful. Um, so the song did hit number 6 on the Billboard. Reeling the Years hit 11. So you know, almost had two top 10 hits off of Can't Buy a Thrill. But hey, 11's not bad, and 6, I mean, that's saying a lot. So the lyrics, what are basically someone murders someone and is caught. That's the first verse. The second verse is a lurid, crazy, romantic affair. And the third verse is gambling in Vegas. And, Steely Dan is famous for kind of writing around the edges and hinting about what's going on and leaving, you know, uh, the specifics up to your imagination. And they do that perfectly with this song. And that's part of you have these merging of these and melding of these different cultures. It's kind of has this mysterious, you know, almost like being in a mist or whatever sound to it. Visualizing the song, and then you're dealing with these three things, addiction, second chances, and the inevitability of fate. That was another take on the lyrics. So yeah, there's a lot going on here, and that's why this song is so powerful. So the song verse one, verse two, and obviously with choruses, and you have the electric sitar solo and the organ solo, and then verse three. So that interesting, construction of the song. I would say is there were other '70s classic rock songs that had that same structure. Now, interestingly enough, once I cracked the code of why the sound was so hypnotic and so just appealing, at least to me, then I was able to go back on YouTube and listen to the live versions that they've done over the years of the song, and now I like the versions. But here's the difference between the studio version and those live versions. They used a regular guitar in those versions, so I which is rare. I mean, but for whatever reason, they didn't take the electric sitar on the road. But So I have a newfound respect for even the live ones because I know kind of what's going on, and they're a lot jazzier. The mystical, the hypnotic sound isn't there as much, but it's still still jazzy, and there's still a lot of good stuff going on live. The guitar solo and "Do It Again" is just mind blowing. And Steely Dan was sneaky good with their guitar playing and guitar solos. I mean, it's really in the years of that classic. You don't have to shred to be good. I love Hendrix did a show on him. He's one of my top five. You don't have to you don't have to shred like that to be a damn good guitarist. And one of there's two main, Fagen and I can't remember the other. I think Baker, maybe the last name of the two main guys, and one of them is a good guitarist. And they had some other people coming in and out of the band, but they had other good guitarists. But they're sneaky good guitarists, very good guitarists. So yeah, "Do It Again." I finally cracked a code about why this song is just so powerful, and then 50 years later, people are still falling in love with it. And you know, um, for up and coming songwriters and musicians, do what I did. File, go on to YouTube and listen to the different tones that they mix there, the sitar and the Guiro, and we know how Congas sound, and just that that mix they did. But yeah, wonderful song. Look, 50 years from now, people are still going to be falling in love with this song. It's timeless. It's so well written. You know, a debut album. People. Debut albums. These artists are hungry, and they just throw whatever against the wall, and then because they have to get noticed, and sometimes you got to take risks and stand out to be noticed. And Steely Dan did it with this song, and Reeling in Years is a little more traditional when it comes to the instruments they use, but it's still really, I mean, again, that hit number 11 in the Billboard chart. So that's another hitter and another classic song as well. So um, glad I finally cracked this code. But thanks for coming through. Appreciate your support. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hey, I got 5 albums of my own, and actually I have a song on my fourth album, Eve's Call, um, Dancing in the Moonlight, that uses a sitar off of a synthesizer. So, I mean, they sampled a good sitar, and hey, I was like, let me throw that. So I juxtapose that with, some synthesizer strings, and what kind of, hmm, kind of a lo-fi hip hop beat, so hey, check that out. My Eve's Calls my fourth album, and Dancing in the Moonlight. So I use a sitar in that song. Uh, so thanks for coming through. Hey, I got 5 albums, all in the streaming services. They're right here on YouTube. You can access them through my channel. And I also have 2 science fiction fantasy novels and a novella on Amazon. So appreciate your support. Leave a comment. If leave a comment on any of my videos regarding my music as well. Appreciate know what you think. Anyway, until next episode, thanks again.